Welcome to Stories Junction. Let's begin today's story. I felt like I was floating when Emily said yes. After 4 years together, I was sure she was my forever. She had this magic about her. Every little thing drew me in deeper. The way her green eyes sparkled when she got excited, how she'd slip her hand into mine as we strolled through the streets of Chicago, or how a single look from her could make me feel like I'd won the lottery. I was head over heels, and I thought she was too. We dove into wedding plans fast. Emily took charge of most of it, flowers, venues, invitations, and I didn't mind. Seeing her so thrilled about it made me happy. I just wanted to marry her. One evening, we were sprawled on the couch in our Lakeview apartment, going over the guest list. She tossed out something casual that didn't faze me at first. "Jessica and the girls are throwing me a Bachelorette weekend in Vegas," she said, flashing that smile I adored. "Vegas, huh?" I quirked an eyebrow, teasing. She laughed, her fingers grazing mine. "Nothing wild, I promise. Just some sun, drinks, maybe a little dancing." I grinned. "Just don't let them talk you into staying there." She leaned in, kissing me softly. "You worry too much, Ryan. I love you. Nothing's changing that." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? The morning she left, I helped her pack. We messed around, laughing as she stuffed her suitcase with bikinis and heels. She jokingly dared me to crash their girls' trip, but I just smirked. "I trust you," I said. At O'Hare Airport, I pulled her close, kissed her goodbye, and watched her vanish past security. I had no clue that was the last time I'd see her without a shadow of doubt creeping in. That first night, I didn't overthink it. I texted her goodnight, and she replied right away. "Good night, babe. Miss you already." It was enough to settle me. She was safe. She was thinking of me. Everything was good. But the next day, something shifted. I called her around noon just to hear her voice. No answer. I figured she was lounging by the pool at Caesar's Palace. Phone tucked away. No big deal. Hours passed. I shot her a text. "Hey, hope you're having fun. Call me when you can." Nothing. By evening, still silence. Emily wasn't the type to ghost her phone, even out with friends. She'd always send something, a quick hey, a selfie, anything. But now, nothing. By 10 p.m., my stomach was knotting up. I called again, straight to voicemail. Was she okay? Did something happen? Or was it something else? I tried to brush it off. Maybe she'd had too many margaritas and crashed early, forgetting to charge her phone. The next morning, my phone buzzed. I snatched it up, heart racing. "Emily." I answered, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. "Hey, babe," she croaked, sounding like she just rolled out of bed. "Sorry, I passed out early last night. The sun wiped us out." I exhaled, trying to shake the tension. We chatted. Light stuff, nothing heavy. It almost felt normal, enough to dull the unease from her silence. Then, as we were wrapping up, I heard it, a guy's voice low and muffled but clear enough. The call cut off. I froze. What the hell? I dialed back instantly. It rang a few times before she picked up. "Hey," she said, suddenly perker. "Who was that?" I asked, sharper than intended. "What?" she replied, playing dumb. I heard a man's voice before the line dropped. "Who's with you?" She paused, just a beat too long. "Oh," she said, rushing the words. "That was just hotel staff dropping off breakfast." I frowned. "Hotel staff?" "Yeah," she continued. "They come by with room service stuff. You know how Vegas is." Her tone was off, too quick, too rehearsed. "You sure?" I pressed, my chest tightening. She sighed, an edge creeping into her voice. "Ryan, relax. I'm in my room with the girls. You're being paranoid." I wanted to believe her. God, I did. So I swallowed the doubt, clawing at my throat. "All right," I muttered. "Have fun." "Love you," she said, half-hearted, then hung up. I stared at my phone, unease simmering. Something wasn't right, but I wasn't ready to face it. Emily flew back to Chicago the next evening. I drove to O'Hare, a mix of excitement and relief washing over me. I'd missed her, but when she stepped out of the terminal, something felt off. She looked the same, tanned, radiant, still the woman I loved, but her hug was quick, perfunctory. Her kiss barely brushed my lips. "Hey," I said, scanning her face. "How was Vegas?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Amazing. I needed that so bad." "Yeah." I forced a grin. "Anything crazy happen?" She laughed, tucking her hair back. "Just girl stuff, Drinking, dancing, too much sun. Nothing wild. I nodded, but that gnawing feeling wouldn't quit. I chalked it up to my own head games. Maybe I was still hung up on that weird call. On the drive home, she was quieter than usual. Normally, she'd spill every detail after a trip, but now she just gazed out the window, scrolling her phone. Back at the apartment, she barely unpacked before crashing on the couch, texting away, a faint smile on her lips. "Jessica?" I asked, keeping it light. "Huh?" She glanced up, confused. "You texting Jessica?" "Oh yeah," she said after a beat. "Just catching up." Catching up? She just spent 3 days with her. I didn't push it, but that uneasy vibe in my gut was growing roots. The changes didn't slam into me all at once. They snuck in slow, like fog rolling over Lake Michigan, quiet but impossible to ignore. Emily was glued to her phone now, more than ever. She'd sit there, curled up on our couch, grinning at the screen, her fingers tapping out messages at lightning speed. If I walked into the room, she'd tilt the phone away. Just a subtle shift, but it felt deliberate. Then there were the nights out. Girls' night went from a once-in-a-while thing to a regular gig. Twice a week, sometimes 3. One evening, as she stood in our bedroom mirror, swiping on lipstick, I couldn't hold it in. "Where you headed tonight?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Out with the girls," she said, dabbing her lips, her tone breezy. Again, she caught my eye in the reflection, her brow arching. "What's that supposed to mean?" I exhaled, keeping my voice steady. "It just feels like we haven't had much time together lately." She rolled her eyes, turning to face me, hands on her hips. "Oh, come on, Ryan. I see you every day." "That's not the same." I shot back, sharper than I meant. "And you know it." She bristled. "So what? I'm supposed to just stay home all the time?" "I'm not saying that. I'm saying something's different since Vegas." She scoffed, shaking her head. "Oh my God, not this again." I stared at her, searching for a crack in her armor. Was she hiding something, or was I just losing it? "Are we going to fight every time I go out now?" she snapped, grabbing her purse. I rubbed my temples, deflating. "No, just never mind." "Good," she muttered and stormed out. I sat there, staring at the empty doorway, that sinking feeling growing heavier. Something was wrong. I could feel in my bones. That night, when Emily got home, I was waiting in the living room. She breezed in, tossing her keys on the table like everything was fine. But then it hit me, a whiff of something sharp, masculine. Not her usual floral perfume. Cologne. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice tight. She barely glanced at me. "I told you with the girls." I stood, stepping into her path. "Then why do you smell like a guy?" Her face flickered, guilt, maybe panic, but she masked it fast. "Oh, for God's sake, Ryan. Some dude at the bar probably brushed past me. Are we really doing this?" I wanted to buy it, but the words felt hollow. "Yeah, okay," I said, forcing it down. She brushed past me, heading for the bedroom. I stood there, fists clenched, doubt gnawing at me. The next morning, she was in the shower when her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I wasn't even trying to snoop, but my eyes darted to the screen. A text from Tyler. My stomach dropped. Who the hell was Tyler? My hand twitched toward the phone, but the shower shut off. I stepped back just as Emily emerged, towel-wrapped, steam trailing behind her. She glanced at her phone, then at me. "What are you doing?" she asked, casual but pointed. I shrugged. "Nothing, just grabbing my keys." She didn't push it, but she swiped her phone fast, lips pressing into a thin line. She was hiding something. I could see it in the way she moved, the way she avoided my eyes. That night, after she fell asleep, I couldn't take it anymore. I lay there, heart pounding, staring at her phone glowing faintly on the nightstand. I knew her passcode, but that felt too risky. Then I remembered, fingerprint unlock. Holding my breath, I gently lifted her hand. She didn't stir. I pressed her thumb to the sensor, and the screen flared to life. My hands shook as I slipped out of bed, creeping to the living room. The hardwood was cold under my feet, the only light coming from the phone. I started scrolling texts from Jessica, her mom, co-workers. Normal stuff. Then I saw it. Tyler. Might get twisted. I tapped the thread, and everything I'd feared unraveled. It started flirty, too flirty. Jokes I didn't get, compliments that stung. "You looked so hot last night. Can't stop thinking about you." Then came the photos. Emily, tangled in sheets, laughing in a dimly lit room. Tyler, a broad-shouldered guy with a smug grin, next to her. My grip tightened, breath hitching. I scrolled further. Videos. Her with him. Intimate. Undeniable. My vision blurred, but I kept going. Then another man. Not just Tyler. A threesome. My throat burned, dry as ash. This wasn't a one-off. It traced back to Vegas, her Bachelorette weekend, when she dodged my calls, claiming exhaustion. It didn't stop there. Tyler had come to Chicago. Those girls' nights. Lies. She'd been with him, sneaking around while I sat here, swallowing every excuse she fed me. My hands trembled so hard I dropped the phone. Rage and hurt collided in my chest. Then on impulse, I forwarded it all, photos, videos, texts, to my phone. I went back, deleted the thread from hers. She wouldn't know I'd seen it. Not yet. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make her face it. All of it. The next morning, Emily flitted around the apartment like nothing was wrong. She had no idea I knew. Over coffee, I tossed out a casual idea. How about we invite your parents over for dinner tonight? She didn't blink. Yeah, sure, she said, eyes on her phone. She didn't suspect a thing. That night, as we set the table, I played it cool, chatting about work, the weather, normal stuff. Her parents arrived, all smiles. We ate, laughed. Then, when the timing felt right, I pulled out my phone. Dinner was winding down, the clink of forks on plates fading into small talk. Emily's mom, Linda, was raving about the lasagna, while her dad, Mike, sipped his beer, nodding along. Emily sat across from me, picking at her food, her phone face down beside her. She looked relaxed, oblivious. I've been playing my part all night, smiling, chatting, acting like the Ryan she knew. But inside, my pulse hammered, every nerve on edge. The evidence I'd pulled from her phone burned a hole in my pocket. I waited for the perfect moment, that quiet lull when everyone's guard was down. Then I reached for my phone, casual as anything. Hey, I got something cool to show you guys, I said, connecting it to the TV in our living room. Emily glanced up, curious but not alarmed. What's this? She asked, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I didn't answer. I just pressed play. The screen flickered to life, and there it was, photo after photo, video after video. Emily, tangled in bed with Tyler, that smug bastard grinning beside her. Then another man, the three of them together, laughing, touching, doing things that made my stomach lurch. The room went dead silent, the air so thick you could choke on it. Linda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Mike's face turned crimson, his beer slamming down on the table. Emily froze, her fork clattering onto her plate. What is this? She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. You tell me, I said, my tone ice cold, eyes locked on hers. She blinked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Ryan, her dad shot up, fists clenched, towering over the table. Emily, what the hell is this? His voice boomed, shaking with fury. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over as she turned to me. Ryan, please, no, don't. I cut her off, sharp and final. You don't get to beg. You chose this. Mike's glare could have burned holes through her. I raised you better than this, he growled, disgust dripping from every word. Linda just sat there, head shaking, tears streaking her face. Emily's desperation kicked in, her hands trembling as she reached for me. Ryan, I made a mistake. Please. I let out a hollow laugh, gesturing at the screen where a video still played, her giggling in Tyler's arms. A mistake? That's not a mistake, Emily. That's who you are. Her breath hitched, a sob breaking free. She knew. She knew. There was no talking her way out. The proof was right there, undeniable, humiliating. Mike exhaled hard, his jaw tight. You heard him. Get up. Start packing. Emily's lips parted, like she wanted to argue, to plead, but no words came. She'd torched everything. Our future, her family's trust, and now it was crashing down. I stood, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. The wedding's off. I want you out tonight. Her mom finally spoke, her voice small. How could you do this, Em? Emily didn't answer. She just sat there, tears streaming, staring at the wreckage she'd made. Then, slowly, She pushed her chair back and stood. That night, she packed in silence. No more excuses, no more lies, just the rustle of clothes stuffing into suitcases. I leaned against the bedroom doorframe, watching her move like a ghost. The woman I'd loved for 4 years was gone, replaced by this stranger I didn't recognize. When she zipped the last bag, she looked at me, eyes red and pleading. "Ryan, I'm so sorry," she whispered. I didn't flinch. "Just go." She hesitated, then grabbed her things and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and the apartment fell quiet. I stood there, staring at the empty space, feeling the weight lift off my chest. It was over. The next few days were a blur. I called off the wedding vendors, canceled the venue, told my friends the short version. It didn't work out. Most didn't pry. Jake, my best man, just clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're better off, man." I started dismantling the life we'd built. Her stuff was already gone, but the little things lingered. Her coffee mug in the cabinet, a scarf she'd left in the closet. I boxed it all up, dropped it at Jessica's place. She didn't say much when she opened the door, just took the box with a tight nod. "She's a mess, you know," Jessica muttered. "Good," I replied and walked away. Work kept me sane. I threw myself into my job at the ad agency, staying late, pitching ideas, anything to fill the void. Nights were harder. The apartment felt too big, too quiet. I'd sit on the couch, replaying it all, wondering how I'd missed the signs. Vegas, the phone calls, the cologne. It had been right there, and I'd let myself believe her. But as the weeks turned to months, the sting faded. I started running along the lakefront again, the cold Chicago wind clearing my head. Friends dragged me out. Bars in Wicker Park, games at Wrigley. Life crept back in, slow but steady. I wasn't whole yet, but I was getting there. Then one chilly November night, a knock jolted me out of my routine. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my breath caught for a split second. Emily. She looked different, thinner, worn, her eyes puffy like she'd been crying for days. "Ryan," she said, her voice shaky. "Please, just hear me out." I didn't move, didn't invite her in. "What do you want?" She swallowed hard, tears brimming. "I need another chance. I was stupid. I messed up so bad." I just stared, letting her words hang there. She stepped closer, desperate. "I tried dating, but nothing works. No one's you. You're the one, Ryan. I see that now." Emily stood in my doorway, the November wind tugging at her coat, her voice trembling as she poured out her plea. "You're the one, Ryan. I see that now." Her eyes were wide, desperate, searching mine for a crack she could slip through. The woman I'd once built my world around looked small, fragile, like the weight of her choices had finally caught up. For a moment, I just stared, letting her words echo in the silence. The old me might have softened, might have felt a pang of pity or a flicker of the love we'd had. But that Ryan was gone, buried under the rubble of her betrayal. I exhaled slow, my breath fogging in the cold, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a calm, empty clarity. "Leave," I said, my voice flat, steady. "And don't come back." Her lips parted, a choked sound escaping like she'd been punched. "Ryan, please, no." I cut her off, sharper this time, stepping back into the apartment. "It's over, Emily. It's been over." Tears spilled down her cheeks, her hands twisting together. "I know I hurt you. I hate myself for it. But I can fix this. I can be better. You can't," I said, shaking my head. "You don't get to undo what you did. Not with words, not with tears." She flinched, but I kept going. "I trusted you. I loved you. And you threw it all away. Not just in Vegas, but every lie after. Every night you walked out that door to him." Her sob broke the air, loud and raw, but it didn't move me. She took a shaky step forward, reaching out. "I was lost, okay? I didn't know what I had until it was gone. You're all I want, Ryan. Please, just one more chance." I looked at her hand, hovering there, then met her eyes. "You had your chance. For years of it. And you chose Tyler. You chose strangers in hotel rooms over me." Her face crumpled, but I wasn't done. "You don't get to come back now because nothing else worked out. I'm not your fallback." She staggered back like I'd slapped her, clutching her coat tighter. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I know," I said, and I meant it. I could see the regret eating her alive, but it didn't change anything. Without another word, I shut the door, the lock clicking into place. Her muffled cries seeped through for a moment before fading as she walked away. I stood there, leaning against the frame, and felt the last thread snap. For the first time in months, I was free. The days after that were quiet, but not heavy. I didn't dwell on her visit, didn't let it pull me back into the mess she'd left. Life kept moving. Winter settled over Chicago, blanketing the city in snow. I started finding my rhythm again. Mornings were coffee and jogs along the frozen lakefront, the icy air waking me up. Work was steady. My boss even tossed me a promotion, said I'd been killing it lately. Nights were beers with Jake at dive bars or solo dinners with a book. The apartment didn't feel so empty anymore. I rearranged it. New couch, new art on the walls. Her ghost was fading. One Saturday, I met up with Jake and a few guys at a bar in Logan Square. The place was packed, all warm lights and loud laughs. We were halfway through a round when Jake nudged me, nodding toward the door. "Heads up, man." I turned, and there she was, Emily, stepping in with Jessica. She looked better than the last time, her hair pulled back, a hesitant smile as she scanned the room. Then her eyes landed on me. She froze, the smile faltering. I held her gaze for a second, then turned back to my beer. "You okay?" Jake asked low. "Yeah," I said, taking a sip. "I'm good." And I was. She didn't come over, didn't try to talk. I caught her watching me a couple times, but I didn't bite. When she left an hour later, I didn't feel a thing. No pull, no regret. She was just someone I used to know. Spring rolled in, softening the city. Trees bloomed along Michigan Avenue, and the air smelled like possibility. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee here, dinner there. It was easy light. No one stuck yet, but I wasn't rushing. I like my own company now, like the space I'd carved out. One evening, I was at a rooftop bar in the Loop with a girl named Sarah, smart, funny, with a laugh that made me grin. We were talking about nothing important when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Emily. Can we talk?" I stared at it, thumb hovering. Sarah noticed. "Everything okay?" she asked. I smiled, setting the phone down. "Yeah, just an old ghost." I didn't reply. Didn't need to. That chapter was closed. Months later, I heard through the grapevine, Jessica, mostly, that Emily was still spiraling. She'd moved out of Chicago, chasing some new start in Denver, but it hadn't stuck. She was back, bouncing between jobs, still alone. Part of me wondered if she'd ever figure it out, but it wasn't my problem anymore. I'd let her go, and with her, all the weight I'd carried. One night, walking home from work, the skyline glittering against the dusk, I realized I didn't think about her much anymore. The pain had dulled to a memory, then faded entirely. I was me again, maybe a better me. And that was enough. Summer hit Chicago like a wave, the city buzzing with life. The streets hummed with festivals, the lakes sparkled under the sun, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Emily's shadow had finally lifted, leaving room for something new. I wasn't chasing anything, just living, letting the days unfold. Work was solid. The promotion had me leading campaigns, and I loved the rush of it. Weekends were mine again. Baseball games at Wrigley with Jake, lazy mornings at cafes in Andersonville, or biking the 606 trail with the skyline as my backdrop. The apartment was fully mine now, too. No trace of her left. I'd painted the walls a deep blue, swapped out the old furniture, made it a space that felt like me. Life was good, simple mine. Sarah stuck around longer than the others. We'd been seeing each other since that night on the rooftop. Nothing official, but steady. She was different, grounded, with a sharp wit and a way of looking at me that made me feel seen. One humid July evening, we were at a street fair in Pilsen, sharing tacos and dodging the crowd. She laughed at some dumb joke I made, her eyes crinkling, and I caught myself thinking this could be something. Later, as we sat on a curb watching the lights flicker, she nudged me. "You're quiet tonight." "What's up?" I shrugged, smiling. "Just happy, I guess." She raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? That's a good look on you." I didn't say it out loud, but she was part of it. Part of this new chapter one hadn't expected. Fall crept in, the leaves turning gold along Lakeshore Drive. I was at a friend's barbecue in Lincoln Park when I heard Emily's name again. Jessica was there, sipping a beer, and let it slip casual-like. She's back in town, living with her parents for a bit. I nodded, flipping a burger on the grill. How's she doing? I asked, more out of politeness than care. Jessica hesitated. Not great. She's lost, I think. Keeps asking about you. I flipped the burger again, the sizzle filling the pause. She'll figure it out, I said, and meant it. Jessica studied me, then smiled faintly. You're really over it, huh? Yeah, I said, meeting her eyes. I am. She nodded, like she needed to hear it, and the conversation shifted. Emily didn't come up again. Winter came fast, snow piling up outside my windows. I was decorating a small tree, first one I'd bother with in years, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. Hello. Ryan. Her voice hit me like a ghost, soft and unsteady. It's Emily. I set down the ornament I'd been holding, leaning against the counter. What do you want, Em? She took a shaky breath. I needed to hear your voice. I'm sorry for everything. I know it doesn't fix it, but I let the silence stretch, feeling the weight of her words, but not the pull. I believe you, I said finally, but it doesn't change anything. I know, she whispered. I hope you're happy. I am, I said, and it was true. She didn't say more, just a quiet goodbye before the line went dead. I stared at the phone, then went back to the tree. It didn't shake me, not like it would have before. New Year's Eve, I was at Jake's place, a loft downtown overlooking the river. The party was loud. Music, laughter, champagne popping. Sarah was there, her arm brushing mine as we watched fireworks burst over the skyline. Resolutions? She asked, grinning. I smirked. Keep doing what I'm doing. She laughed. Boring, but I'll allow it. Midnight hit, and as the room cheered, she leaned in, kissing me soft and slow. It wasn't a promise, just a moment, but it felt right. Later, walking home through the snow-dusted streets, her hand in mine, I realized how far I'd come. 4 years with Emily had built me up, then broken me down, but I'd climbed out stronger. Spring again, a year since she'd shown up at my door. I was at a Cubs game with Sarah, the crowd roaring as the sun dipped low. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. Emily's engaged. I read it twice, waiting for a sting that never came. You okay? Sarah asked, catching my stare. I smiled, pocketing the phone. Yeah, just news about an old friend. Good news, she pressed, curious. For her, maybe, I said, shrugging. Doesn't matter to me. She nodded, satisfied, and we turned back to the game. That night, lying in bed, I thought about it. Emily moving on, starting over. I hoped she'd learned something, found something real. But it wasn't my story anymore. Summer rolled back, and I proposed to Sarah on a whim. Down by the lake, no ring, just us and the water. She laughed, said yes, and we figured the details later. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Nothing like the circus Emily and I planned. Jake toasted me at the reception, grinning. You dodged a bullet, man, and landed a keeper. I clinked his glass, glancing at Sarah across the room, radiant in white. He wasn't wrong. Life had a way of working out. Not perfect, but mine. Emily was a memory, a lesson, a closed book. I didn't hate her, didn't miss her. I'd built something better, and that was all I needed.